What is the value of a hero? This is a question the world seems to be asking itself constantly now, as we live in a time where they are everywhere. We watch them on screens, big and small, we read about them in books and comics, we collect their memorabilia, and we save up our money just to go to a place where there is a strong chance we'll meet them. One reason for our love of them could be that they exist in so many forms. They can be someone more powerful than we could ever imagine, a soldier who fights a threat to our homeland, a rescue worker who risks their life to save others during a crisis, or just a simple instructor providing valuable information and advice for the coming years. And yet even that does not hit at the heart of it. What is it that makes heroes worth admiring? Well, that is a question I intend to answer by looking at Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiger, or Pirate Crew Theft Ranger, the 35th anniversary season for Toei's long-running Super Sentai franchise. But before we can even begin to consider the question, we must fully explore the series, its characters, and its themes.
言葉がわからない、そういったことだろうと、いわゆる我々が演じてきたものは、地球征服をする悪者に対して立ち向かうという、その中の日本を代表しているものだ。人間一人一人を例えばやっつけたりなんかするというスケールのものではなく、地球全体に対して向かってくる悪に対しては、我々、国民並びに国が変わろうと何しようと、そういった者たちに対して立ち向かうという、こういった姿はどこの国でも同じじゃないかなと思います。悪いものに対して正義が勝つんだということではなく、その中にも教育が入っていれば、だんだんやっぱり蓄積されて、心の中に残っていくので、そういった子たちが大人になって、正義とは何ぞやと唱えて、そして子供にまた教育をすると。こういった正義感の私たちが言葉がわからないながらも、スーパーマンが大好き、スパイダーマンが大好き、同じように、かっこいいものはかっこいいですね。特に日本のヒーローものはかっこいいですね。ですからアメリカの何でしたっけ、日本のロボットのあれに似て作られたというような、ロボコップは日本のあれのものを真似て作られたんですか？それからもう一つ、5人の、パワーレンジャーというのもやっぱり日本のゴレンジャーが原点になってるんじゃないかと思います。戦隊もので。パワーレンジャーっていうのはもう何年前からでしょう。つまりゴレンジャーは40年前からです。ということは日本の方が早かったと。どっちが早いからいい、どっちが遅いからどうのこうのってないんですが、やっぱり心に引きつけるそういった正義と団結、そういったものが支持されるんだと思います。
Since 1975, the 34 Super Sentai have stood as sentinels of justice and protectors of love and happiness to the people of Japan and indeed the entire world. Of all the Shotaro Ishinomori created Toei tokusatsu franchises, it has endured the longest and most consistently throughout the modern era, always reinventing itself and coming back with a new and more interesting theme to take on threats that correspond. Even going on to spin-off adaptations of the franchise such as the long-running Power Rangers series, which was my personal introduction to tokusatsu. But after 36 years and 34 plus teams, it would be pretty hard to come up with a threat massive and staggering enough for a big blowout anniversary series. So what was Toei's answer to this? 1 year before the events of Gokaiger in Universe, their enemies, the Zenyak Space Empire, launched a massive invasion of the on a scale that had never been seen in Super Sentai up until that point. And we get to see the decimation in full during the prologue to Gokaiger vs. Goseiger. Entire cities are in ruins, there's not a single sign of life, and there are grunts marching in numbers of thousands. So, in order to save the Earth from total annihilation, the 34 Super Sentai release almost all of their power in one burst, destroying the initial Zanyak fleet, but also scattering their powers across the universe and leaving themselves powerless. It's a true display of heroism, and one that shows just how worthy the Super Sentai are of the title of Earth's protectors. Not to mention it works amazingly well for marketing your show and its movie. But the truth is that it wasn't enough, and the loss of their powers places the Earth of the Super Sentai universe in an even worse situation than it started in. Though Super Sentai can use up all of their power to stop an immense threat, Gokaiger is the series that makes it clear that the tradition of Super Sentai itself can never end. As Aka Red, the spirit of all past Red Rangers creates the Red Pirates and spends the next 6 months traveling across the universe, retrieving 178 of the 193 missing power sets reformed as Ranger keys. And, as we can infer from the existence of the Gokaiger powers, he probably even created another 5 in the process. However, even he could not stand up to the Zanyak for long, as he is eventually betrayed by one of his own crew and lost to the depths of the universe. And yet, even that is not enough to stop the enduring spirit of Super Sentai, thanks to one person bent on achieving his dream. This is where Captain Marvelous comes in, reforming the Red Pirates as the Gokaigers and bringing the Ranger keys with them to Earth. One of the complaints often lobbed at Gokaiger is that the Zanyak aren't a serious threat, or that Walt's Gill is too goofy to be taken as a serious villain. Well, personally, I think the Zanyak are as serious a threat as any faced by any other Sentai, maybe even more so in some cases. The Zanyak are an empire made up of millions of races, as evidenced by almost all the action commanders being completely different from one another. And unlike most other Sentai, they aren't created by one of the main villains every episode. By the time we get to the main events of the series, the Zanyak have control of almost the entire universe. And what they don't control, they've destroyed. Even going so far as infiltrating and nullifying the Galactic Space Police Union. Their conquest of the universe has probably been going on for years or even decades by the start of the series in order to become so powerful. After all, Walt's Gill states in one episode that everything he has ever been wanted was handed to him on a silver platter, which pretty much tells us he was born into this life, meaning his father and maybe even his grandfather had been on the warpath since before he was born. And let's not forget, the last time these guys sent a fleet to Earth, which was considerably smaller than the one Walt's Gill commands, it took all 34 previous Super Sentai to stop them. The only reason the Gokaigers are so easily able to walk through them for most of the series is Walt's Gill is only sending down small squads of troops with one action commander to attack them at a time for the most part, a tactic that his subordinates repeatedly remark is foolish and most likely won't work. However, as he's the prince, his word is law. And that is the real tragedy of the Zanyak. If someone would just stand up to the little loudmouth, they would probably be able to come up with something that could actually beat the Gokaigers. And why don't they? Well, let's not forget the situation Damaris, Insan, and the action commanders are in here. They're leading the biggest invasion fleet the Zanyak have ever put together, trying to capture one little planet that to them only won last time due to a fluke, and all the while they are under the command of a loudmouth prince who has something to prove, and his cyborg butler/bodyguard, all on top of being under direct orders from the Emperor to keep the prince safe at all costs. So yeah, rock meets hard place. They try to follow their orders to the letter, even going so far as begging Walt's Gill not to pilot the Great Walls, knowing he might get himself killed. However, the worst happens when he ignores them and is killed by the Gokaigers piloting Ultimate Gokaio, and the Emperor personally comes to avenge his son's death. It is at this point that Damaris and Insan are given the option of either destroying the Gokaigers or spending the rest of their lives in prison. They then end up dying trying to destroy the Gokaigers, thereby showing just how desperate a situation Emperor Akido's Gill had placed them in. The Emperor himself comes to represent the very thing Super Sentai stands against. evil in its truest form. We don't learn much about Akido's Gill's past, but it's pretty easy to read him. Whether or not he started the Zanyak's intergalactic conquest, it has clearly driven him mad with both power and greed. All he cares about is preserving his empire and bending more worlds to his will. And unlike his son, when things don't go his way, he doesn't respond with a temper tantrum, but rather by throwing more of his seemingly infinite might at the problem, not caring about what is destroyed to achieve his goal. He never stops to think about what he's doing, but continues pushing on and on until he has what he wants, and he keeps coming back with more and more until he himself is forced to take to the battlefield. In that way, he is the perfect representation of the evils the 34 previous Super Sentai had fought. Every time one is defeated completely and the Sentai team retires, a new, even stronger one rises to take its place. Or to put it another way,
if they cut off one head, two more shall take its place. Hail Hydra.
In this way, the franchise reflects our own real-world problems. As a wise man once told me, there are always going to be more roadblocks in our lives. What matters is not that they are there, but that we get past them. Though that does beg the question, what would it take to get past a roadblock as huge as the Zanyak?
Dynamite and a long fuse.
うちの船長は信じられないお人よしだからな。元残虐に女盗賊、ろくに戦えそうもない技術者にお姫様、通りすがりの地球人、一度裏切られた男がよくここまで集めたもんだ。
The Gokaigers are certainly one motley crew of pirates, though that fits perfectly for Super Sentai. Even though it's rarely as extreme as it is in Gokaiger, most of the previous Sentai's members came from different backgrounds and all joined together under one common theme or shared interest. In this case, it's wanting to find the greatest treasure in the universe and stick it to the Zanyak. But it's not that mission statement that makes the Gokaigers interesting to me. It's how they come to want those things. You see, the main 5 Gokaigers all have one thing in common. They all lost a great deal to the Zanyak. Don and Im's homeworlds were completely destroyed by the Zanyak after choosing not to bend to their will, and though we're not given confirmation, it's safe to assume something similar happened to Lucas, as whenever we see her in flashback, she's running through war-torn streets, desperately trying to keep herself and her little sister alive, until one day, she fails in her task and her sister dies. But a tragic backstory does not inherently make a great character. It's how that character chooses to respond to the tragic events that befell them. And here we see that these 3 members of Marvelous's crew are extremely strong-willed and are able to bounce back from these events. Luca takes to protecting other orphan children during the Zanyak raids and stealing from the Zanyak themselves in order to one day afford a better life for them. Don moves to a more peaceful world and starts up a new life for himself running a repair shop. And Im looks for and joins the Gokaigers in order to send a message to her people that though the Zanyak may crush their planet, they can never crush their spirit, and that she will always be there to stand against them. Now let's look at Joe. From what we know about Joe, we can assume he was born into the Zanyak Empire, possibly even a military family. Since the earliest we see him, he's at a military academy and is very much a greenhorn. And it isn't until he and his friend Sid are taken on their first real mission that they realize the horrifying actions the Zanyak expect them to perform, when they are ordered to execute a group of young children. But this is also the first time we see that not everyone in the Zanyak are pure evil, as Joe and Sid set the kids free and try to fight and escape their own squad. But it's also not very long before we're reminded just how ruthless the Zanyak are, as Sid is killed and later turned into Barizord to serve as the prince's butler/bodyguard. And yet, like the others, Joe still bounces back from this and keeps fighting the Zanyak as the first member of Marvelous's new crew, and eventually confronts and destroys Barizord, ridding the universe of the perversion of Dr. Zane's creation. And then we have Marvelous himself. We don't know much about his past outside his time with the Red Pirates, but from what is shown in Gokaiger vs. Gavan, we can assume he was born a refugee of some world destroyed or invaded by the Zanyak. And yet he still managed to survive long enough to come into Akared's care, and it was during that time that Marvelous most likely came to see Akared as a mentor or even a father figure of sorts. After all, a majority of Marvelous's flashbacks are to times when it was just him and Akared and he learned a lesson from him. Whether it was to mind his surroundings, how to carry himself as a man, or even to never give up in the face of certain death. And while he isn't exactly the ideal Sentai Red, something Guy points out on numerous occasions, he does have a good heart, and often will stop in his tracks while looking for treasure to fight the Zanyak because people are in danger, even if he and the other Gokaigers would never admit to it. And eventually, he uses that sense of right and wrong to confront Basco, the man who betrayed him and Akared, to get justice for what was done to them, and the 5 Sentai Basco stole ultimate powers from. These are the kinds of characters I love the most, and can most easily get invested in. People who have been dealt a horrible hand in life, and in any other circumstance would turn out cynical and evil. But when the chance arises for them to do so, they rise above those tragic moments in their past and choose to fight for what they believe in, whether it be their own dreams or protecting others and upholding justice. That's what I think makes these some of the greatest heroes in the franchise. By their example of overcoming the incredible hardships they have gone through, they inspire us to do the same. And on top of all the meat and potatoes that are those characters, we still have one more to talk about in the Gokaiger crew. That being... Guy is probably the smartest move marketing-wise for Gokaiger. After all, for the 35th anniversary of the franchise and only the 19th anniversary of its 6th Ranger trope, what's more appealing than an audience representation character who has the powers of all past 6 Rangers and can fuse different powers together?
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
Guy loves Super Sentai on a fanatical level that I don't think I've ever even seen in the real world. He's constantly trying to teach the others about their past, fanboying over and asking for the autographs of every past Ranger they meet, and just generally being a goof-ass for the whole show. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if back home he has a huge garage just filled with Sentai merch. He's pretty much all of us on a TV budget. But like the rest of the Gokaigers, there is more to Guy than just the wow factor of what he is. He very clearly took the example all the past Sentai set to heart and went into the adult world wanting to help others, even going so far as to jump in front of a speeding car to save a child, landing himself in the hospital. And it's that very act of pure selflessness that earns him his power from the free-fallen Dino-themed Sixths, giving him the power to fight the Zanyak and protect his homeworld from falling to the same fate that befell the worlds of the other Gokaigers, which makes him the next evolution of what the Gokaigers are, just as they are shown to be the next evolution of what Super Sentai is.
34のスーパー戦隊の大いなる力を全部引き出せばきっと宇宙最大のお宝が手に入るよ。
When the Gokaigers first make landfall on Earth, they don't exactly give off a great first impression to the public or the audience watching the show. They're gruff, demanding, and very unorthodox for a Super Sentai. But in a way, that's what makes them perfect for the job. When they first get to Earth, it's nothing but another planet that's about to be conquered by the Zanyak to them, just like countless other ones they've been on before. And they are only here to do two things: get their treasure and get out. But when they learn the only way to get the treasure is to collect each Sentai's ultimate power by earning it from them, things change. They are challenged to really look at the world, the past Rangers they meet, and their battles with the Zanyak. They even learn from ordinary citizens on a few occasions while helping them out. And through all of these small moments along the way, not only do they grow as people, but they also grow into their own right as a full-fledged Super Sentai, until finally, after reclaiming the 5 ultimate powers stolen by Basco, they are face to face with the greatest treasure in the universe. And that's when they learn the truth about what it is. Not money, or gold, or gems, but rather the power to rewrite history itself, once. So what is their first thought on what to change? To erase the Zanyak from history. Gokaiger is very much a bait-and-switch series. It presents and markets itself as a big blowout anniversary series where the heroes meet the legends of the franchise's past and can even use the powers of those legends. And while it is all those things, when you look past all the great suit designs, wonderful music, incredible action direction, and top-notch acting, you have one question. Is it justifiable to change your past and the past of others if it will bring about good? And the answer to that question, as demonstrated in Gokaiger's final episodes, is a resounding no. While huddled in what's left of the Gokai Galleon, the Gokaigers realized they could easily wish away the Zanyak and create a universe at peace without any of the suffering they have seen and endured. But to do so, they'd also be removing the past 34 Super Sentai from history. Now, when this video started, I asked what is the value of a hero, and in answering its own question, Gokaiger has also answered mine. Leading up to the point the Gokaigers are faced with this choice, we see them run across many examples of just what the Super Sentai meant to the people of the Earth, and how they've inspired them. Guy and Marvelous themselves embody this notion, having grown up learning from the past Sentai and taking their examples to heart when they became adults, just as many of the regular citizens in this show have. And just how all of us who grew up on superheroes did. Because that is Gokaiger's message. That the reason we as a people are so obsessed with heroes is because they mean more to us than any other archetype. The heroes of the past are what inspired our past to grow into our present, and the heroes of today are what will inspire us to grow into a better people tomorrow. Just as the past 34 Super Sentai did for the people they protected, and just as the Gokaigers have for the people they've met over the course of their series. And just as Sentai itself will continue to do so long past the Gokaigers, or even the rest of the franchise. Because that is the meaning of Super Sentai, and indeed the meaning of heroes in general. Just as evils, hardships, and tragedies will continue to rear their ugly heads for years to come, so will our heroes, both old and new, continue to be there to fight off those evils, and inspire us to move past the tragedies and hardships of our own lives and become something better than what we were yesterday for time untold to come. So no matter what form they take, be it ordinary, working class, rescue, or even super, our heroes matter, and they must always be there. Hey guys, just wanted to say thanks for watching, and to give a special thanks to Bill Forsyth, my script editor on this video, without whom this most definitely would have turned out to be a vastly inferior product. He helped me out a lot with the wording of things, and just generally getting it to be a much tighter script than anything I've written before.
And I hope you guys enjoyed our hard work, and I hope you enjoy all the videos we have planned coming in the future, because there's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline, and I hope you guys look forward to it. Until then.
高校生教師で兄弟5番ジェットマンはトレンディ10連恐竜ファンタジー記録で勝利だ大レンジャーポップの忍者だ核レンジャー俺古代の超力だ交通安全カーレンジャー学園精神メガレンジャーアースの戦士の銀河マンこの5はレスキューだタイムレンジャー未来から少年110吠えまくり忍びの風吹きハリケンジャー爆竜ガスだアバレンジャーデカレ宇宙の警察官魔法の家族だマジレンジャープレシャス探す冒険者